Hello and welcome to the introduction video to Autodesk Maya. This is for people who have never used Maya before or have, for whatever reason, been away from Maya for a little bit of time and just need that little bit of a reintroduction to it. So, just to give a brief outline of what Maya is. Maya is a 3D modeling software that's used inside games, animation, simulation, CAD, movies, many different things. It's even used inside the 3D printing software industry for figurine and tabletop game asset creation, that sort of thing. So it's really versatile, super versatile. One thing I hear about a lot from people who are very new to Maya is the interface when you first open it up can be a little bit scary. There's a lot of buttons dotted around, there's a lot of different menus, there's a lot of new terminology that people won't understand. So I'm just here to basically go over the very basics first and just give a very broad overview of what you're looking at when you first open up Maya. Okay. So first things first, when you first open up Maya, you're going to be greeted with this screen and you're going to see this main window here. This is the 3D viewport, and this basically contains everything inside our scene. So all the rigs, all the geometry, all the textures, whatever we make basically lives inside this scene in one way or another. Everything else around it obviously is options and functions and tools to help us create, change, model, render, all the lovely stuff. So first things first, we're gonna go up to the very top of the screen here, and this is our, your standard menu options for. This is the area of options. You find this in all softwares: Photoshop, Word, Excel, Illustrator. So the first 7 are very familiar. These are the ones that will become very familiar. First one is File, and this basically just contains all the ways of setting up like making a scene, exporting from a scene, like importing to a scene, saving a scene, setting up a new project. This is all contained inside this menu. Edit basically contains all the information we need for editing a scene, undoing, redoing a move, selecting, duplication, grouping and parenting is all contained inside this menu. Modify, basically we can change different aspects of our objects or our scene. We can center our little pivot on objects so it's better to move and stuff. This one will become more apparent when we start actually doing stuff. Create is a menu set which contains all, like if we want to make a circle or a sphere or a cone or a cube, this is all contained inside this menu. You can even make 3D text, curves, locators. We can even import AI files from Illustrator to use the paths to create geometry. It's very versatile. This is where we also create our lights and our cameras. Display contains all the options we have for basically changing how we see the scene or things inside the scene. So we can change the colour of wireframes, we can change the size of joints, or change we can hide objects that aren't selected if they get in the way. It's a very versatile menu, and we'll be using this quite a lot. Window contains, like this top set here contains a lot of our menus, like our preferences, our plugins, our hypershade, our rendering layers. Oh, I keep losing it. Our rendering layers. We've got some animation sets over here, relationship editors, our outliner, attribute editor, node editor, Playblast for the animation and the VFX students, the UV texture editor, which everyone will be using. That's all contained inside this menu. And then there's assets, which we won't really be using, so I won't go into what this contains. The rest of these menus will change determining what functions we want to use. Again, this will become clear later on. So the second row contains a few different sorts of menus, but we'll go through and just explain one just very briefly. This on the very left, we've got this little drop-down menu here, and this contains options into what we can change these menus to. So at the minute we're set to polygons, so all these menus here like mesh, edit mesh, mesh tools, normals, color, these are all ways we can interact and modify our geometry, or unwrap its UVs, or swap its normals and stuff. If we change it to say animation, you can see that this menu is now changed, and it contains new menus like skeleton and skin and constrain, muscle and create deformers. And each one of these little menus will have a different set of menus. There is a customize, so within theory you can make a whole personal set of menus. We won't be doing that just because it's, you know, it's a lot of work for not little outcome, for very little reward when we're for the work that we're doing. Okay, next across is basically a really quick like new scene, open scene, save scene. These three buttons here basically change the way we select objects for whatever purpose. Generally you want to be set to this middle one, and then these magnets here are ways that we can like snap. These are all like snap settings, so we can like snap to geometry, snap to the grid, which is this, snap to a pivot center and stuff. These are really useful. We'll be using these a lot for our modeling. And then this group here is our rendering settings. Most of the modules won't be using this, but these are going to be really good for the VFX students. These last four menus here really contain some really cool functions, or things we're going to use quite a lot. So this first one on the left is our modeling toolkit, and this contains a lot of different ways we can affect our model, like bevel edges, bridge and edge, connect edges, extrude, multi-coat, target weld, all that sort of stuff. The next one along is the attribute editor, and this will contain all the attributes relating to our object or selected whatever. Third one along is our tool settings, and if you like, so every time, just to clarify, every time you click one of these, it'll bring up one of these menus. So tool settings is just the settings for the tool we have selected. So at the minute I have translate selected, so it'll give me all the different ways I can change how this tool works. If I change to rotate, you can see rotate settings, same thing. Scale settings, same thing. Okay. And the last one is our control box, and this contains all like scale information, translate information, rotation information to our specific selected object, and it also contains our layer setting down here. And this will become very useful later on because it's a way we can kind of like, just like Photoshop has layers, we can select different assets and say like you live in this layer, so we can turn it on and off, so it doesn't get in the way too much. Okay. So the next one is this group here, and these are all shelves, and this is something I find people get a bit confused about at first because they see all these different icons and not everything's very clear about what it does, especially when you get into like fur, hair, fluids, paint effects. Generally we'll only be using the first few, but what they are is it's most commonly used functions. So we've got a rendering function, like inside general we've got rendering, what is, you know, like a help, and then we've got ways we can move our camera, and then we've got a undo, redo, we've got delete object, select an object, connection editor, you know, stuff that people will use a lot. And as you go across, obviously each one of these different shelves will contain new information. Like we've got these are all the most common curve functions, most common surface functions, and most common polygon functions. this polygon shelf is the one we're going to be using the most, because this contains all the geometry and most of the tools we'll be using when we're actually building our assets, whatever it may be. Okay. I have a few more shelves than other people do, than what you will do. These are just plugins I have here for my workflow, so don't worry that if you've not got Turtle or Bullet or Renderman, these are all specific to me. Okay. So moving down from that, we've got this little group of small little menus here, small little icons, like view, shading, lighting, show, render, panels, and then all the functions underneath here. So then on the left, just because I realise it's 15 minutes now, this is basically how we can select objects using these top three functions here, like lasso or paint selection. Again, we'll go over these inside the classes, and then these bottom three is how we actually we can actually move our object around. I can rotate our object, or I can actually scale our object using those three. There's also hotkeys applied to this, which I'll go over in a later video. And this one here is our last function used. So in this case, it was create a cube, so that's still there. And these down here are different window presets. So there you go. Yep. So down here we've got our animation timeline and scrub. We won't be using these, or visual effects might be using these quite a bit. Obviously for simulation, but for everyone else you won't be using these, so don't worry about it. In fact, all this bottom section can be ignored because we won't be using it, so there's no point in learning about it inside this video. If we do use it, I'll be going over it inside class. Okay, so that's basically Maya in a very brief, very quick outline. Cool. So a lot of these functions I've just moved over quite fast. We will be going in depth when and if we need to use them. So don't worry if you didn't understand any of these functions. We will be going over them. This is just to introduce people to the UI of Maya and break down everything. Okay, cool.